Recently, me and my girlfriend broke up. It was a mutual agreement because we felt things just weren't working out. We only dated for about a month. She always had a bit of a temper, and that's something that I won't miss at all. About 2 or 3 weeks after we broke up, I received a text from her one evening. She said that she really wanted to talk to me and to meet her at a nearby park at 10 p.m. It was a park that we would go to sometimes together, and I liked it because it was down by a woods and looked very nice. I didn't know what she wanted, but I was guessing she would want to get back together. I did not want to get back together with her, so I was preparing to tell her that and thinking of ways to be nice about it. I walked to the park from my house at about 9:45. It was a nice night out, warm with a little breeze. The park was very dark once I got there. I texted her that I was there, and I asked where she was. She told me she was in a corner by a picnic table in front of the woods. I walked over there, and when I arrived, I did not see her. I called out her name. There was no answer. I took out my phone to call her. Just then I heard leaves rustling behind me coming from the woods. I looked behind me and saw a large man wearing a ski mask emerge from the woods. I am 6 feet tall, and this man was very big. He had to be at least 6'5". He walked over to me. I turned to run away. I got about 10 feet before I felt the man tackle me to the ground. I tried to defend myself, but I was honestly no match for the masked man. He punched me several times and slammed me into the ground. He then took my wallet and my phone, as well as my keys. He hit me a few more times and then ran away. I laid there in pain for a minute before I was able to get to my feet and walk home. I wasn't badly hurt, just a little banged up. I ended up going to my neighbor's house because my keys and phone were stolen. They called the police, and I explained the situation to them. A locksmith had to be called for me to get into my house. The police were eventually able to track down my ex-girlfriend, and it was found that she intentionally lured me into the woods to get me robbed. The man and her were arrested, but I never got my wallet, keys, or phone back, and they had to be replaced. I'm embarrassed to admit this, but years ago, when I was a teenager, I had an online girlfriend. At the time, I was about 14 years old and met a girl my same age on Facebook. For this story, I'll call her Brianna. I really don't remember how we became friends, but we started chatting. Mostly we used the app called Kik to send messages to each other and communicate. Brianna lived in the same state as me, but like an hour away. I had never had a girlfriend before, and after talking for only like 2 weeks, we decided that we were in a relationship. We had never met in person and didn't tell our parents about each other either. It seems really silly looking back, but I guess we wanted to see what it was like to experience dating someone. Anyways, we would mostly just talk on Kik every day, and we told each other just about everything about ourselves. I told her all kinds of things, from how my school was, and even gave her my address so we could mail each other stuff. Well, that didn't end up happening, and we ended up breaking up after about a week and a half of dating. I wouldn't even consider this to be an official relationship. I never did meet Brianna in person, and this happened in like 2013. Anyways, after a couple of years being in high school and meeting lots of other people, I forgot all about this little online relationship that I was in. But just a few years back, in 2019, something crazy happened. I lived at my parents' house still and was home by myself one night while they were at a friend's house. I remember that it wasn't that late. It was like 9 p.m., and out of nowhere, I heard a sound coming from the back door of my house. When I heard it, I felt something was wrong immediately. I knew it wouldn't be my parents, and there was nobody else that should be here. I was in the living room and got up and walked over to the kitchen, where the back door was to investigate. I only made it a few steps until I was within view of the back door. That's when I heard another loud noise, and the door began to open. Several people then started walking in. I noticed one of them appeared to be Brianna. I jumped back to get out of sight. There were 2 men with her. I barely recognized her, and to be honest, I'm surprised I remembered so quickly. She was probably the last person I would guess to be inside my house. They weren't looking at me when they walked in, but no doubt they would be able to figure out within seconds that I was here. I ran upstairs and quickly got to the bathroom and locked myself inside. Not long after this at all, I heard somebody start coming up the stairs. I did have my phone on me and took it out and dialed 911. When I heard the footsteps get to the top of the stairs, they headed straight towards the bathroom that I was in. Somebody tried opening the door, and then they said my name. It was a man's voice that I did not recognize. I yelled that I had already called the police. In reality, I had just dialed and hadn't said anything to the 911 operator yet. The man's voice on the other end of the door laughed and then said that they didn't care. I heard other voices coming from downstairs, a man and a woman. The voice on the other side of the door said that they would be back in a minute and then headed back down the stairs. I spoke quietly on the phone, asking for them to send police out here immediately. As I was in the bathroom, I heard lots of noise coming from downstairs, mostly talking among the people who were now inside my house. This went on for probably 5 more minutes or so. I was just waiting and dreading the moment whoever it was would come back up the stairs, but surprisingly they didn't. Eventually I heard the noises move and get quieter, then things were silent. A few minutes after that, the police arrived. The people were gone, but when I went downstairs I saw that basically the whole main floor of our house was all torn up. There were countless things missing, like our TV, my PlayStation, a laptop, and things like that. The back door had been busted open, but I was able to get police information because I knew one of the people. It was then that I realized I didn't even know Brianna's last name. The information that I did give turned out to be enough, though. They were able to track her down the next day. She actually broke into my house and robbed us with her current boyfriend and his friend, who I guess were well known with police in the area. They had robbed several other people's houses around the area that week. I really have no idea why they chose to rob me, though. It seems really random after years of not talking to her. Last year, my girlfriend and I broke up. We dated for a couple of months, but she was just way too high maintenance for me. After we broke up, she continued to call me, though. I let her know that I was not pleased by this, and I asked her to leave me alone. She would keep calling me and texting me, and eventually I had to block her. Fast forward about a month. I got home from work one day to find one of the front windows to my house was smashed. Shattered glass was everywhere. I thought someone must have broken into my house. I walked inside, ready to defend myself. The house looked normal, and nothing was messed up though. I walked through the house one room at a time to find that there was nobody else in there except me. Nothing appeared to be stolen either. I had to get the window replaced, which costed a lot of money. Then, about a week later, I left my house one morning to go to work. When I got to my car, I saw that all the tires on it had been slashed. Now I knew that these two incidents had to be connected, and I immediately suspected my ex-girlfriend. I ended up unblocking her and accusing her of the incidences that happened at my house, but she never responded. I had to get one of my friends to give me a ride to work. After work, I reported to the police the things that happened at my house. That night, I woke up to hear the sound of glass breaking. I thought to myself, here we go again. This time, I was pretty angry, and I got up and ran out to my living room to see another window completely smashed. I ran outside to see if I could see anyone, but there was nobody there. I called the police and told them that once again one of my windows had just been smashed. They said they would send someone out. When they showed up, they examined the scene and asked me some questions. Then they began to look around my house. The officers went down to my basement, and when they came back up, they had my ex-girlfriend. She had broken in and was hiding in my basement. I didn't even know she was in the house, and I assumed she left. It was a big relief to know those things would not happen anymore. I'm just glad the police found her in my basement because I don't know if she had plans to harm me or not. A couple of years back, I dated a girl named Christine. We dated for about 5 months, then broke up. We split on good terms and even remained sort of friends. When I say that, I don't mean that we hung out or anything, but we occasionally would text and see how each other were doing. I was glad that there were no hard feelings between us and that things were fine. One day I received a text from her. She told me how she was moving and there was a gap in the leases of her apartments and some other complicated stuff. She said she needed a place to stay and asked if she could stay at my place for a couple of days. I was a little hesitant, but being the nice guy that I am, I said yes. I thought it might be kind of awkward, but I figured that I would be working most of the time and I wouldn't have to talk to her much. When the time came, she arrived. We talked briefly, and things seemed pretty good. She was staying on my couch, and I would sleep in my bedroom. I went to work, and when I came home that night, we talked again very shortly, and then I went into my room. I hung out in there for the rest of the night. I went to bed at around 11 p.m. I usually sleep really well, but on this night I woke up and could see that everything was still dark. I closed my eyes to fall back asleep, but I felt as though I wasn't alone. I remembered that Christine was staying with me, and I looked up to see her standing at the end of my bed just staring at me. She had a really mean look on her face. It was like a look of hate. I asked her if she was all right. She didn't answer me. She just stared at me. I sat up in bed and she backed up a couple of steps. I asked her again if she was all right. She then turned and calmly walked out of the room and shut the door behind her. I was pretty confused by this situation. After a while, I was able to fall back asleep. I figured she was sleepwalking, but I didn't remember her ever mentioning it when we dated. The next morning, before I went to work, I told her what had happened in the night. She seemed very surprised and said I had to be joking. I asked her if she ever sleepwalked. She said that no, she did not sleepwalk and never had before. I just didn't know how else to explain what had happened. I thought maybe I was dreaming the whole thing, but it just seemed way too real, and I had never dreamed anything like that before. I just knew I was awake. The next night, I once again woke up in the night. This time, I sat up and looked at the end of my bed again. Nobody was there. I was relieved, and then I looked around the room. Then I saw in my doorway Christine's head peeking around the corner, staring at me once again with a mad look on her face. She was just staring at me for a while. We made eye contact, and then she backed away. I sat there just staring at the doorway for a while. After a couple of minutes, her head appeared again, just staring at me. Then I called out to her, and she once again backed away and shut the door. I didn't get much sleep for the rest of the night. Thankfully, that was the last night that she stayed at my place, and she left first thing in the morning. Before she left, I told her once again what had happened, and she seemed very surprised again. To this day, I have no idea what she was doing. A few years back, I met a girl at a bar. It was a long night of drinking with some friends, and the next thing I knew, I met what seemed like a really nice girl. Well, all within a few months, we started dating and had broken up. I won't mention the girl's name, but she would get extremely jealous, which is the main reason why we broke up. She would pretty much get mad anytime another woman spoke to me or even looked at me. That's a bit of an exaggeration, of course, but it was really bad. So we broke up not long into the relationship at all, and I was the one to break up with her. She seemed to take it pretty well at first. However, only a few days later, I noticed that she had parked her car on the side of the road in front of my place. I recognized the car immediately and had a bad feeling about it. I thought she was going to get out and come to my front door or do something, but the car just stayed there. I considered going out and asking her what she was doing here, but I decided not to. She never did end up getting out of the car and stayed there until after midnight. I went to bed, and the next morning her car was gone. However, it was back again that night shortly after I got home from work. Pretty much the same thing happened as the night before. It was like she was just watching my house. The next day I had off, and I went to see my friend Daniel. When I left my place, I didn't see the car on my street, but shortly after I began driving, I noticed it in my mirror. I was followed all the way to Daniel's place, and then her car drove off. I realized then that my ex was seemingly stalking me. After that, I sent her a message letting her know that I needed her to stop doing this, but I didn't get any response. The next day, I went to the store and back and didn't see her car. I spent the rest of the day at home and also didn't see her car at all. I figured maybe she had listened to my message and had stopped. But I was wrong. That night, as I laid in bed, just seconds from falling asleep, I heard a noise outside my window. I casually looked over, not expecting to see anything notable, but I saw my ex. She was walking right up to my window and looked inside, just in time to make eye contact with me. When she saw me, she ran away to the side, out of sight. I had no other choice but to call the police. When they got there, she was gone. I ended up deciding not to press any charges or anything like that. I just wanted her to leave me alone, and luckily I haven't seen her since. Still, I can't believe that she stalked me for several days.